This episode of Beauty and the Surgeon podcast is brought to you by Let's Get Checked. Let's Get Checked is an online company dedicated to making professional health testing easy and accessible. Let's Get Checked offers fast, affordable, completely confidential at-home health tests from a range of tests from STDs, male and female hormones, and even COVID-19. Listeners of our podcast who are new to Let's Get Checked get 20% off by using our URL, trylgc.com/beauty, and be sure to use the code BEAUTY20 at checkout. That's trylgc.com, trylgc.com/beauty, BEAUTY, and be sure to use the code BEAUTY20, BEAUTY20 at checkout. Do it. Getting tested is important. It's the responsible thing to do, and you know how important I think it is to make sure you understand your labs. Welcome, everyone, to Beauty and the Surgeon podcast. I'm Amy. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner, and I'm joined today, as always, by the one and only Dr. Jason Martin.
It's on my scrubs, Amy. It's on my scrubs.
Jason Martin, MD. He's a board-certified plastic and reconstructive surgeon. Dr. Martin, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm very happy that 2020 is over, and now we're in a new year.
Yeah, so our first episode of the new year, we almost always talk about something that's not necessarily surgical, and that is the case with this episode as well. So we are not talking about surgery today. We are talking about happiness.
Happiness.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of thought, like, last year we talked about goal setting.
Yeah.
The years before that.
In the context of that year, goals set, I mean, just the fact that we talked about that, and then 3 months later, the whole world changed, and all these goals that everyone had to be thrown out the window, I'm sure.
Or modified.
Yes.
So if you'd like to think about your goals, our episode from end of last year was really great about goal setting. A couple of years ago, we talked about perception and people's concepts of beauty. So we kind of go a little bit like esoteric, and we talk about something not related to surgery.
This is the conversations that basically Amy and I have all the time.
Yes. So let's talk about happiness, Dr. Martin.
Let's talk about happiness.
So happiness, as the dictionary defines it, is simply, it's a noun, which kind of seems weird because what is a noun?
A noun is a person, place, or thing, Amy.
Right. So happiness is a thing, or is it a person? Is it a place?
Is it a place?
Right.
It's a state of being.
It is a state of being happy.
Oh, okay.
So the state of being happy. And again, just thinking of happiness as a noun, it kind of changes. I was like, man, that is kind of weird. Like, kind of think of it as an adjective, right?
Right.
It's
kind of just descriptive.
Describes something.
Yeah.
But it is actually a noun. So,
interesting.
Yeah. So what is happiness?
Oh my God. You're asking a 47-year-old man what happiness is?
Right. And I mean,
with teenagers.
Yeah. So what do researchers say happiness is? Because it's hard to describe.
Well, we've talked about this before. We've talked about some of this before. So one good episode is Ryan Doris. He talked about maybe not happiness, but fulfillment in your life and how to reach that fulfillment. So I'm going to say that the state of being happy does have to do with that component of fulfillment in your life.
Yeah.
Am I getting close here?
Well, let's look at three different kind of thoughts on what happiness is.
And these are actually like researchers.
These are people who research happiness.
Let's do it.
So subjective well-being. And this is what infuriates everyone who studies it, because when researchers are talking about happiness, they interchangeably use the term subjective well-being with happiness, measured simply by asking people to report how satisfied they feel with their own lives and how much positive and negative emotion they are experiencing. Mm-hmm. So like, okay, like, is that really what happiness is? Like how much negativity or positivity you have? Maybe. Is subjective well-being happiness? Maybe. I liked Sonia, I'm going to butcher her last name. Would you like to pronounce this?
Absolutely not.
Lyubomirsky?
There you go.
Yeah, that's it. Describes
what's the derivation of Lyubomirsky?
I have no idea. We're just going to call her Sonia. Describes happiness as the experience.
Eastern European?
Yes. The experience of joy, contentment, or positive well-being combined with a sense that one's life is good, meaningful, and worthwhile. And I think that's what you were getting at with chick me high, chick me high.
No. Me high, chick sent me high.
Yes, that guy.
I would love for you to look that name up on Google. And I literally said me high, chick sent me high into Google, and it absolutely did not spell that guy's name.
No.
So he was the one who talked about flow state. Ryan Doris talked about him, and then what was the triangle of the triangle where you have different levels
It's your needs.
of
Yeah.
needs. Yeah. And that really came into the fulfillment category. And the flow state was like being in a state of flow was creative outlets that really took all parts of your brain and you got lost in it. And that was truly fulfilling to the people in those states.
Right. So happiness is perhaps a combination of experiencing joy and contentment, but also having a sense that your life is meaningful and worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
Reinforcement, happiness is a combination of fleeting positive emotions, because they are, and a deeper sense of meaning and purpose that reinforce one another.
Right. So meaning, purpose, meaningful, worthwhile,
but also having positive emotions.
yeah.
That
and
is
with
part
positive
of it.
emotions is kind of where we're getting at.
Yeah. So that's kind of what scientists, when they research happiness, that's kind of what they're looking at.
And that's like a huge field, by the way. And why is that? It's not just because they care about happiness. Happier people buy more stuff. I'm sure that these multinational corporations probably pay these people a lot of money to figure out, what makes people happy.
Yeah.
And then they put that on, commercials and stuff. So there's a big financial component to this, but truly these are psychologists at major institutions like University of Chicago was a big place when I was there that really studied this stuff for years, for decades.
Yeah. So it's more than just feelings of joy, and it's more than just purpose in life. You kind of have to have both. And it's more than just negative or positive emotions that you're experiencing in the moment. Like, obviously those things don't really mean happiness.
Yeah.
So where does happiness come from? And I think this is what's so interesting when we talk about happiness and just general positivity, that they estimate, and this is they being scientists estimate, researchers, that 50% of your happiness is determined by your genes.
Okay.
10% is determined by your life circumstances, and 40% depends on our daily activities, which I think is really the most powerful part of this, is just that basically 50% of this is just you. The other 50% is things that you have some control over. I mean, your life circumstances are very often not things that you can completely control.
But if you took someone on the street and you said, okay, where you were born, like what your surroundings are, what you're made of, your genes, and what you do on a daily basis, I think most people would say where you're born would have the biggest effect on your happiness. Thinking about third world countries that are very impoverished and disease ridden and, not long, lifespans and stuff like that. So that's so interesting that really is this from research?
Yes.
Okay. That actually your daily activities can be as high as 40%. I would have said that would be a lot lower.
Yeah. But remember, we're talking about happiness, and happiness is kind of a hard thing to describe. So I think that, as we learn more about our genes and our genetic coding, essentially, I think we realize just how flexible and malleable those things are.
Right.
So a lot of our thoughts and our happiness and our levels of depression and positivity are, 50% what we're born with. But so much of that can be impacted by just our daily activities, even in bad circumstances. So, you get 60% bad, maybe your genes make you more prone to depression and you live in a place where you're very oppressed. 40% of your joy and your happiness comes from what you do every day.
Yeah.
And how,
And what you do gives people meaning and a foundation in their life. And, I always try to relate it to myself. I mean, I love doing surgery. It doesn't matter how bad my day is. When I'm in that operating room or you and I are working together, I mean, I get joy out of that. Mm-hmm. I get fulfillment and I get meaning out of that. And that's why, in general, I would say I'm probably more of a happier person.
Yeah, that's a little happiness triad.
But I don't feel happiness. And the problem with happiness is you think it's, especially in my competitive nature, you think okay, am I really happy? How can I be more happy? And there's levels of happiness, and so maybe there's not levels of happiness.
Well, but there kind of are. When you think about the definition of happiness as a noun, it's a thing. It's fleeting. It's not, it can be a non-static thing. Happiness isn't a solid thing always. Mm-hmm. So I think this is why it's important to practice happiness, because happy people are far more likely to do these things. They're far less likely to get sick. Happy people don't get sick as often. They're more generous. Happy people are more likely to have fulfilling marriages and have more friends. They cope better with stress and trauma. And these are all things that are studied.
Can happy people be annoyed by people in general? Just out of curiosity. I'm asking for a friend.
You mean low level of just annoyance with the human population? I think they can.
Okay.
But they cope better with stress and trauma, so they deal with their dislike better. Okay. They make more money and are more productive at work and are more creative and better able to see the big picture.
Yeah.
These are things that are studied about people that are happy.
So it's no It's not. I'm putting this towards me. I'm not trying to make this podcast or this episode about me, but I'm just trying to go through my lens. I'm more of a creative person, but I don't think my creativity always makes me happier. I think it's kind of torturesome sometimes because I want to get it all out.
Get your creativity all
Right.
out. We'll actually talk about that in a future slide,
Okay.
why that might be.
Okay, so sometimes I feel burdened by the shackles of life that I can't express myself because, you have to do everything that we all do. You wake up, you have to do this chore, that thing, take the kids here and that kind of stuff. And I can't just be in that creative realm, that flow state that Mihai talked about.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's because you're not finding happiness in your daily activities. The 40%.
You sound like a Buddhist.
I know, right?
Yeah.
You got to just find the Zen in everything you do.
Okay.
No, I mean, that's not realistic, but I think these reasons alone, are good. This is why. I mean, like when you're saying like there's so much effort done to study happiness. Well, this is why, because happy people make more money.
Yep.
They get sick less. They deal with trauma better. The happy people are more productive in society.
Yeah. If you look at the top countries of happiness, I had it here somewhere, but I think Finland's the first one. Their GDP is not really that high, meaning that they're not super productive, but their mean income is higher. So these people don't make crap loads of money, but they make more than enough to not be impoverished. And they tend to be happy and they're just more productive during the day, even at normal jobs.
Yeah.
They're not like all CEOs of major companies, but they're out there doing their work and happy with their lives and what they're doing.
Well, and that's, I think I've always said that no matter what I did, whether it's this job or if I was like cleaning houses for a living, I'm just the type of person who's always going to do that to the best of my ability. And that's a lot of that 40%. That's the 40% of what you're doing.
Yep.
How you feel about what you're doing and how you feel about the rest of your life. If you have a job you maybe don't love, but you're able to compartmentalize it into just what you do for work and you appreciate the fact that it gives you money and allows you to support your family, well, you'll keep doing whatever, rote job you have and be fine with it.
That's another thing. Like I am almost envious of people that don't really like their jobs because they can devote their time to like non-job things that make them happy. Whereas I love my job and you do too.
Yeah.
And it becomes so much of a part of our lives. There's not a lot of energy left over for me to go read a really interesting book actually this podcast is our creative outlet, truly.
Yeah.
This podcast gives me an immense amount of happiness, but besides this and our work, we don't have a lot left over.
No, I agree.
You
You do sometimes feel envious of people who can like clock out,
Oh yeah.
like
And
then
my
they're
wife,
done.
my wife can definitely not do that
And like
either. Yeah.
shut the screen and like work is over.
Like I'm always envious, and it's so trite, but the dad that Saturday comes around and he goes to the golf course with his friends and they're like golfing, and then afterwards he plays with the kids. Like I'm just not that.
But see, you could be.
This is not who I am.
But that wouldn't make you happy.
It would not make me
See,
happy,
and that
no.
makes that guy happy.
I know, but that's kind of nice.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't take a lot of effort.
Well, nice isn't always equal happy.
That's true.
So before we get into this a lot deeper, let's take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsor.
Yep.
And we'll be back.
We'll be right back.
Dr. Martin, I'm super excited to talk about our sponsor for this podcast, Let's Get Checked. If you've been a listener of our podcast, you know that we have never had a sponsor before, and that's because we're an educational podcast. We're not looking to monetize, and we also would never recommend something that we didn't believe in and or use ourselves.
So basically you're saying we're very choosy.
We're very choosy when we come to our testing, but Let's Get Checked really aligns with our values. We talk a lot about monitoring your blood values of certain things. We talked recently about vitamin D serum levels. We talk a lot about hormone levels, and it's hard for some people to get to a lab, or you're afraid of the blood draw, or just, you're concerned about confidentiality. Like you have a lot of concerns and you just don't do it. Let's Get Checked makes it super easy because it's completely confidential. You do it from your home. So there's really no excuse not to do it.
Yeah, and we did it recently. Both Amy and I did it. She looked at her women's health, basically her hormone levels, and I looked at mine on the men's health side with testosterone. It was very simple. You go online. Their online interface is really easy to use and good. We got the testing kit very quickly. And the test itself, actually doing the stick, you do a stick on the end of your finger, is not hard to do. It only took about 3 to 4 minutes. You put it back in a sealed envelope that's confidential, goes back to them. You get your results in 2 to 5 days. It's really that simple. And the best part is it's about empowerment, about you taking control and trying to do things that are positive for your health and life. And this is one way to do it literally from the comfort of your own home.
Yeah, so they offer a wide range of tests. So they do men's and women's hormone panels. They do a full panel of STD testing. They also are now offering a COVID-19 test at home. So there are a lot of other just basic blood levels that you can get tested as well. And one of the things that we always say is you can't track what you don't check. So you might not know what's normal for you in the future if you're not checking it now, especially as it relates to hormones. And men's health specifically, I feel like is a little bit undertreated. I mean, sperm counts are dropping by a large percentage in men these days. Most men struggle at some point in their lifetime with low testosterone.
And those men do not know what the symptoms of low testosterone are. Depression, anxiety, sleep problems, osteopenia or loss of bone, loss of muscle, and something we treat all the time, gynecomastia or male breast growth. These are real problems that can be improved or treated with testosterone. And these men do not know their levels. It's so easy to get checked. And this is why we're so excited about the sponsor.
Yeah. And Let's Get Checked is a completely CLIA certified lab, the CLIA lab. So they're a well-established, completely safe lab to use. You do get contacted after, so you get your results. I got a text at 4:30 in the morning, which I loved, that my results were ready.
And we're both up at 4:30,
yep,
so that was good.
Super excited. And you have access to not only a nurse, but also a physician. So a physician does review your results, and it gives you a little breakdown of like where you're sitting on those levels. Dr. Martin's had even comparisons of like where two of the levels should be in relation to each other, which is a really important thing to note.
Right.
Just being within the normal range is not always enough. So it really gave more information than that. And you'd still want to, of course, reach out to your own doctor if you needed some additional assistance with these labs or you did see something that was concerning. We didn't, thankfully, so that was good.
Yeah. We were both good. This podcast is about empowerment. It's educational. In my private practice, I'm a board certified plastic surgeon. We are all about empowerment, and this is one way to do it. So we're very excited about the sponsorship, and we're looking forward to using it for our patients moving forward.
Yeah. So as a listener of our podcast, if you're also a new time user to Let's Get Checked, which a lot of you probably are, we do have a 20% discount code. So you do need to go to our specific URL, and it is linked in the description box below, but it's going to be TryLGC, so TRYLGC, like Let's Get Checked.com/beauty, BEAUTY. And you'll need to use the code BEAUTY20 at checkout. Beauty again is BEAUTY 220. And you can pick a test, like any test you'd like, put in our code and get your test shipped to you. Getting tested is the right thing to do. It's lets you know where you're at and what's responsible.
All right. Well, let's get tested.
Let's get tested. Let's get checked.
Let's get checked.
Well, we're happy to be back. Are you happy to be back?
I am extremely happy. I'm just extremely happy it's not 2020. I just want to throw that out there.
There you go. See, you find happiness in the daily.
Oh, I'm very happy about that.
So how can you cultivate happiness?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I know something. I go more sciencey. Okay.
Well, these are things that are studied by science.
I know. So I told you about the hedonic treadmill, that people, they tend to want to add things to be happy, right? And they've shown that it just does not make you happy.
Because you need more. It's like an addict.
Yeah. And the hedonic treadmill, you should look this up, hedonic treadmill. It's a known thing, and they've talked about it in multiple studies, and it's been recognized internationally. But adding stuff does not make you any happier. And we all know that. You know that inherently. We talk about that all the time.
Well, you see that with children.
You see it with children, you see it with adults, you see it, even in my life, the more successful I've gotten, it hasn't made me happier. I can buy more things, but it doesn't make me happier. We see that even in our plastic surgery practice. Just by doing things and adding things doesn't always make the person happier, even if they quote unquote look better. So I do think that the way to increase happiness in your life are a couple ways. Number one, this is my viewpoint, is personal interactions, having real connection to people.
Which 2020 made challenging.
The isolation of 2020 was terrible.
But it maybe helped people realize that they need that more.
Right. And, I joke about not wanting to socialize, but I get tons of social connections in the operating room with Amy at my work, with my patients. I love my patients like my family members. Yeah. So
you're surrounded by people all the time.
Right.
You're not working in a cubicle.
Right. And I'm like, pick the best type of surgery job you could have. People are super, can I say happy? Super
happy. Yeah.
Pumped up with the results. And they're like, pat me on the back.
It's elective. Yes. Yeah. People aren't seeing us in times of stress and trauma.
Right. So, I personally think that human connection is the first thing. So they've shown that people in isolation are more depressed, more anxious, and die earlier.
It's a way to torture people.
Yeah.
You isolate them.
The second thing I think is meaning. And people can find meaning in different ways. I know my parents found it with religion, with Catholicism. I've found it with my family, the love I have for my wife and my kids, and also my work and the love I have for my coworkers. Some people find it in projects or philanthropy. Some people find it in creative outlets. We follow people that find it with exercising. Just truly, there some sort of meaning that you have in your life that's above and beyond just living. And that could be a farmer just growing things. And we talked about those people who are born in third world countries. That could just be weaving baskets. I don't want to minimize what they do, but that something like that, something as simple as that could bring meaning in their life. So I think that's really where happiness comes from. Am I on track here?
Yeah. Well, I just brought up 10 things, and these are, again, things that have been actually studied.
I should have just looked down. Why didn't I just look down?
Right.
Can I change my answer? Right. I want to build relationships.
Well, that's number one. And like you said, the social interaction, like having people in your life you have meaningful relationships with, brings you happiness. Like it does. Being physically active. Right.
And this FYI, the polarization in our country, in America, has really hurt us because polarization does not allow you to build relationships. It takes the pool of people you could possibly build a relationship with and it cuts them in half. Okay. And you throw those people out. So now you're stuck with 50% instead of 100. And that's why I think that we need to, all of us, to improve happiness is reach out across boundaries and try to build those relationships.
Well, and actually having relationships with people. I mean, you talked about the hedonic treadmill. I mean, what builds that need for more stuff more than social media and the perception that other people are happy when you are not? You scroll through social media, people are posting their highlight reel, and what they're posting is completely fabricated in most cases.
No, it's not. It's all real.
Yeah. Their new car, their beautiful house, their fabulous spouse.
What are you talking about?
Their kids that are perfect.
All my surgical results are amazing.
Right. But that's what my point being, like, that doesn't really cultivate relationships. Like, that cultivates that want, that greed, that need for more to make you happy.
Right.
Rather than just having like a real relationship with a person, oh my gosh, in real life, like a real human in front of you. So building relationships is... Yeah,
and Zoom, which we've done for the past year or past 3/4 of the year, is great for efficiency and productivity, but is really also isolating people more. Actually having human cues, trading pheromones, whatever that stuff that's going on when you're in front of people, or when I'm doing surgery and talking to the circulating nurse right in front of me, it's meaningful, and seeing them and seeing facial expressions. And I mean, the mask alone doesn't allow us to read people's facial expressions. I'm sure there's something from an evolutionary standpoint that helps with connectivity with that.
Well, yeah. I mean,
there has to be.
There
right?
is. I mean, even the studies about Botox and babies not having appropriate responses to their to anger and sadness because their moms were like, over Botoxed. Like, those are real studies that were done and showed that those kids did not respond to emotions like they should.
Embarrassing.
So take that and put a mask on someone, and same thing. Like, you're smiling. Like, I was joking. We had some pictures taken with some people, and we all had masks on. I said, "Was everybody smiling?" I mean, you can't tell. We're all just like, it's just eyes, Like, yes, you can tell a little bit with your eyes.
Lately, with the mask, I've been smiling with my eyes.
And I tried really... to smize. You've been doing the famous supermodel, Naomi Campbell. Was that maybe the smize lady? No. Banks. Starts with a T. Tyra Banks. We need to play that. We need to be on the $50,000 pyramid. We'd be so good at it.
Is she on it now? Is that what she does?
No, she does the show. I'm saying you and I, because we'd be good at it.
We'd be good at Amazing Race too. Amazing Race for sure.
She would always say smize, Yeah. Yes, smize. Smile with your eyes.
Smile with your eyes.
But those are important things. Being physical, like you said, I mean, it's well known that exercise produces endorphins. It makes people happier.
Yeah, that has helped me a lot.
In conjunction with that, spending time in nature.
Forest bathing.
Yes.
Yeah. Joe Rogan was talking about walking in the forest in one of his episodes, and I was like, it's forest bathing, bro. Come on. Throw out the right term.
Yes.
But get physical. So one of the things I think is important, and it's kind of a little bit devastating, if 40% is related to your DNA, a lot of that is related to the chemical, milieu in your brain. And we, Amy and I have known close family members that have struggled with depression and anxiety. And it's really hard to watch, and your heart breaks for them. Exercise, even if you're one of those people, can really make a big difference. It can really help your brain chemical milieu and help you function throughout the day. And that's proven. A lot of people need medications. We support that. We're not anti-medication, but this augmenting with exercise can make a big difference.
Big difference. And if you're spending time in nature at the same time, you're getting a double dose. Like, that's awesome. Practice savoring, I thought was
I'm not good at this.
a really good one. And I think we aren't. As a society, we're getting less and less good at it because our world is moving faster and faster. So it's so much, it's like the kid with box, you watch a child opening packages at Christmas. Oh, great, they're super excited until the next box. And what do? They just toss the thing aside to get the next box, the next thing that's going to be better, the next thing that's better than what they just opened. Like, we've just become so much that even, you look at people who struggle with binge eating and other types of things where like it's like an insatiable hunger. Sometimes it's physical, and that's a physical thing too, but that you can't focus. You can't focus on what you have in front of you.
Yeah. So if you watch The Social Dilemma, which I've never watched fully through because it's so disturbing, or you actually read stuff about our dopamine culture, that you get this kind of dopamine effect, and that is fleeting, and the dopamine doesn't affect you as much anymore. You need more of it and more of it and
Hop
more.
back on the hedonic treadmill.
Right. And there's something in pharmacology called tachyphylaxis that over time the medication stops working. You have to keep going higher. You see that with Parkinsonian patients too. So, I mean, it's the same thing in human physiology. When you read stuff on your social media, and these kids do when they're reading stuff, or I'm watching TV to calm down, basically you're fulfilling that dopamine kind of process, and savoring is a long-term thing. It's not a quick, kind of enjoying it. Like even a meal, even during the times when we were locked down, I had to calm myself down to because we had nothing else to do. So you'd make a meal and you slow your eating process down and really take time to talk to your family members. And that's not normal. I mean, I remember vividly telling myself to do that.
Yeah. Well, that's something that nature kind of forces you to do too. I mean, especially if you're in an area where you don't have cell service, like taking time to savor the things around you. And that kind of goes hand in hand with giving thanks, being thankful for the things in your life, even if you don't have much, and just reminding yourself that you do have things, to be thankful for, and not in a way that is trite or like, oh, well, you have so much to be thankful for. I mean, I'm not trying to say that to someone who's upset or depressed, like, well, look at all the things you have to be thankful for. I don't mean like that at all.
Which, by the way, if you actually read stuff about people struggling, the worst thing you could say to them is, well, aren't you thankful you have your health?
Right. Like, well, then they just feel even worse because they should be thankful and they're not.
And you make them feel like more of an asshole. Yeah.
No, I mean,
but to be truly thankful for things that you do have and to think about those and appreciate them. I'm sure there's some data on writing that stuff down and using mind
journaling.
imagery or journaling to think about those things. That probably lowers your blood pressure and helps with anxiety. I'm sure it increases happiness.
Yeah, I think you could make that same thing, like maybe instead of give thanks, like practice gratitude, like, or practice kindness, which is the next one. Like those are things that, are beneficial. They help you feel happier when you're, practicing kindness towards other people or being grateful for the things in your life. Those are definitely things that help with happiness.
I'm grateful for you.
I'm grateful for you.
Yeah.
Like seriously.
We got that going for
Nils
us.
too.
Nils okay.
And Sarah.
I like him better with the shaved beard.
I liked him as hanging outside the mask.
Which, by the way, I was going through the old episodes and I said that Nils looked like he was about to abduct your child walking up because he did have that child abductor beard, the one that was not controlled. He needed like the beard oil or something.
Some beard oil.
Yeah, to kind of work it through.
Be in his beard. Yeah. Giving up grudges. I think this is such a key thing and so big in like even things like 12-step programs. You have to ask for forgiveness. You have to like give up your grudges because if not, like there's such an anchoring thing in life. And if you are anchored to feelings of anger, hatred, or even sadness, like it doesn't mean that you forget those things, but like breaking the anchoring sadness to them, I think is really key to be truly happy. Getting rest. We talked a lot about the importance of sleep over the last year.
Sleep is huge.
We both wear our Oura rings.
And again, like, if you think about happiness is somewhat related to your chemical milieu in your brain, the best thing you can do is get some sleep because of what's in the brain, Amy.
The lymphatic system.
Lymphatic system.
Yes, I love bringing up the
that gets all system. The bad thoughts and sucks it out. Yeah,
it is.
My sleep score last night was 93.
Oh, don't even.
Almost 2 hours of deep sleep, an hour and 45 of REM. I'm coming at you, Dave Asprey. I got you.
No, it's true. I mean, so if you're not getting the appropriate rest, like it puts you in a kind of state of fight or flight, which is not going to be conducive to happiness. Pay attention.
So it is weird because we're talking, I mean, we're a medical podcast, we're educational, and we're really talking about medical things related to happiness. And happiness is like a term that has a religious connotation to it. It's hard to describe, right? Like if you say, hey, what is happiness? I think everyone's going to come with a different, if you say to somebody, what is a stool? They can describe what a stool looks like. When they describe happiness, it's going to be different to everyone, you know?
That's what I said, it's kind of that combination of things.
Yeah, but I'm just looking through this, and all these things have medical, data behind it, and they're all related to isolation, to your overall health, to minimizing anxiety, to minimizing depression, and improving your physical status. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. The last one is don't focus on material wealth. And they also link this very closely with how much people give back. So how much philanthropy people, participate in, how much they actually gave back, rather than just buying tons of things from themselves. I mean, there's the, people that it's better to give than to receive. And, that's not true for all people, but for the people that it is true for, it really finding joy and being able to share in your wealth or your happiness. Do you have something to say about that too?
No, I was just looking at this because they did, obviously post what we've been through or what we're going through, the amount of happiness in the United States is at its 50-year low. The University of Chicago does a survey from NORC. I don't even know what that stands for, but basically they've been doing it for almost 50 years now, since 1972, and it's at its lowest level. And Americans report feeling isolated, more depressed, more anxious, difficulties with relationships and stuff like that. So I do think one of the issues with this, and I don't know if you make this correlation, is that, giving back and philanthropy is not just financial, but it's actually time and experience. And a lot of people get that from churches, which we think are great, or whatever organization. And it's hard to do that now. That you can't, much
even
less
just taking a meal to your neighbor. Are they going to accept it from you?
No, I know.
No,
we talked about with the kids going down and preparing meals for the shelter on Thanksgiving, and us as medical professionals, my wife and I, we were like, it's just not going to work because they're not going to take our food. You can't go down there and help them prepare because they don't want people to do that. You were limited what you could do. So it was very interesting at this time. So I don't just think it's the social relationships. I do think it's the ability to give back.
Yeah, and not, again, like the material wealth. It doesn't have to mean you have a lot of money. It could just mean you have a lot of stuff. Wanting more than you have can happen on any level. Like you can be a multi-billionaire and still be striving for additional material wealth or more than you have.
Yeah.
And you could be poor and have basically nothing and want more. It's that drive and that focus on only that is what robs you of happiness.
Which is why I think it's funny that Bill Gates is getting so massacred, so much stuff, because the guy's super rich, and I think it's a vaccine thing. So I get that some people have a hard time with it, but at the very least, he's taken all of his money and he's trying to give that back. I think we should support that more. You may not agree with vaccines. I totally get that, but you should agree with philanthropy, right?
Well, yeah. And they do a lot of other things, especially in Colorado. They've done a lot for the arts in Colorado. So giving back does increase happiness.
Right.
So let's talk about some of the limitations of happiness. And I brought this up that we were going to kind of talk about one of these things that you had mentioned before. So you kind of think well, what's wrong with too much happiness? That seems crazy, right? That's like having...
Well, we've all met people that seem too happy and they're effing annoying. Right? Like some of the best conversations I've had with people are complaining. That's why I love New York. Everyone in New York complained about everything. And it's but it was fun and enjoyable. I got happiness out of talking to people that didn't seem like they were happy.
Well, maybe that made you feel happier.
Yeah.
But there are some limitations of happiness. Too much happiness can actually make you less creative and less safe, which I think is an interesting point. And I put in here mania, because people who are feeling too happy are going to be overly risky. They're going to take risks. They're going to do things that are reckless. They're going to have very reckless behaviors because they have nothing to kind of balance that out. They also get so caught up in their mania when they're happy that they lose their creativity. It can be a negative thing. It can make them not want to do their art because they're not tortured anymore.
So a negative stimulus that provokes anxiety is an amazing motivator to change your life and make your life better. So that's the way that medical training works. when we went into training, they didn't sit us down and say, you know what, first and foremost, we want to make sure you men and women are happy. They basically said, you're totally screwed. Some of you guys aren't going to make it. We're going to torture the living shit out of you for 5 years or 6 years or 7 years. And then,
Good luck.
Good luck. And then hopefully you're not so emotionally scarred afterwards that you can be a functional human being.
That you can actually function in life. Well, I mean, look at like artists. Like I think back, I look at Adele. I mean, my goodness, that voice. But, you know, you kind of got to have some ups and downs in your life to be rolling in the deep, you know? So
you did not.
I did. Happiness is also not suited to every situation. So people that are happy when they shouldn't be, like meaning they are watching something really scary on TV and that makes them happy, or they're watching someone be tortured.
Yeah. Yeah. And those people you think are psychotic.
They are psychotic. That's my point. Like that's not appropriate happiness. Like happiness is not the always the good like emotion to have.
Right.
Not all types of happiness are good for you. Like people who are extremely prideful and find happiness in other people's downfall. That is not a good way to feel happiness. Only being happy when other people are suffering.
So sports kind of blurs that line a little bit.
Well, that's competition.
Is it? I mean,
being happy that
I
your
kind of
team
like
has
it when the
won.
Cowboys lose.
Oh, well, you must be ecstatic this year.
Yeah. I said it.
Yeah. But I mean, I think there's obviously like right and happiness is not always the right answer. Like,
right.
Pursuing happiness can actually make you unhappy. And again, the hedonic treadmill is a perfect example of that. The striving, the wanting, you know, the 7 deadly sins, you know, they're having like that insatiable like greed doesn't mean you have a lot. Like having a wanting to be like happy, like what you see on social media, like, ooh, if only I could be this, if only I could have that. That person looks happy. So like that is not going to make you happy. Like it can actually make you unhappy.
Yeah. But then if you can peel that away, you kind of look at these people and you actually feel sorry for them. Like all these people that are posting bikini pictures in some beach area when everyone's stuck at home and they can't leave because the CDC has locked us down, and seeing them at beaches is like, no, I don't want to be you. Like you're an asshole. Like, we can't be at the beach right now. Right. I don't really feel like you're representing anything at all. And like the fact that you have the ability to somehow get to a beach because you live near it.
So that's how I feel about the people in Kentucky working out without masks on.
Yeah, it's each their own. But I do think pursuing happiness is a noble path, but it's not the end all be all. That should be part of what you're doing. I know I pursue perfection in my job, right? You can never get perfection. You can't get there. So I'm not just happy about that. That bums me out. But that's what keeps me going, is striving to be better and to better and to better. And that gets fulfillment, but I wouldn't say that's happiness.
Yeah. And that's where it's important.
I really think that happiness has different definitions to different people. I really do.
And it's a combination of the emotions in the moment, but then also that deeper sense of fulfillment. And that's where pursuing happiness without any type of like deeper sense of fulfillment, you're not going to get happy if you're not having something that like actually fulfills you.
Yeah.
And that's where
I wish we had the money to buy Don't Worry, Be Happy. We could just intro and exit with that song.
Yes, we could. Yeah.
That song was huge. Do you remember that song?
Oh my goodness, yes. It was on the Cocktail soundtrack. It was huge.
Yeah.
That shows how old I am.
Cocktail.
Yes, Cocktail.
Tom Cruise.
It was the 80s. I was alive in the 80s.
And who was the actress? She was also in Karate Kid.
Oh yeah, I don't remember her name.
Elizabeth Shue.
Yep.
And her brother was on 90210. Oh yeah. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. The 90s and 80s were kind of an incestuous time in Hollywood. Well, actually, really, most of the periods of time in Hollywood, like you have a small amount of actors doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
And then you get on to the next group.
Yeah, there is a lot. Like we talked about the Wilsons, right? Like, yeah, there's a lot of brother and sister combinations. It's interesting.
Well, they kind of have their,
McCarthy,
their time.
that's their cousins. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So I love this. This was something I found in looking at research about happiness. I found this, it's not an acronym. Yeah, We Promise. But it basically talks about 9 universal and overlapping human needs that kind of lead to happiness. And this goes into what you're saying about how it's different for everybody. So if you look at We Promise, and I did not mention that if you'd like to watch the slides that went along with this, we're on YouTube at
We're on YouTube. You guys know
at Jason Martin MD. Totally skipped that in the intro.
Like us, rate us, review us.
Comment, review. But
comment.
We Promise. So W is for well-being.
And William.
mind-body connections, aspects of your physical body that affect your mood, and vice versa.
Yep.
So well-being.
Okay.
Okay. E is for environment. I feel like I should be on Sesame Street. Environment is things like your external factors, safety, food availability, freedom, weather, beauty, and your home.
Right.
So
That's forest bathing.
And your environment, like literally the place where you are. Are you safe? Do you have food? Do you have freedom? How's the weather? How's the things around you? How's the forest? P is for pleasure. So these are the more temporary things. So temporary experiences, joy, sex, love, eating.
And those are all human desires and needs.
Needs.
And you need to embrace those also. There's nothing wrong with enjoying a meal.
Right.
Amy taught me that. Food is supposed to be enjoyed. You're supposed to love it. It's not like always supposed to be something that's like disciplined and negative.
Enjoy it. Relationships are the R. We talked a lot about why relationships are important. They're the foundation of what it means to be human. Do you want to read some?
You go ahead. Because I struggle with these kind of things.
Okay.
Because I feel like we're like getting into the Tony Robbins category here.
No, these are just fun.
But these are actually really meaningful.
Outlook, how you approach the world, adventurousness, curiosity, making plans.
Yeah.
Like your outlook on life has a lot to do with your happiness. Meaning, here we go. Having a purpose and the wisdom to understand it.
I would just start with M.
Start with M. You just did a MIS.
You pro eyes. And put the M at top.
You can't change it. It's hard to remember if it's not we promise. I, involvement. So being engaged, being actively involved in things.
Yep.
That's kind of the giving back, volunteering.
Right. And that's what I was talking about. For us, we're so involved in our work that we don't get to be involved in other things like golf on the weekends or whatever your thing is. And I think that after going through what we went through in 2020, I'm going to try to find something like that.
So your involvement thing.
Yeah. Like to get involved something outside of work that draws me away from myself and my passions and gets me into other arenas.
Yeah. Success. Success is part of happiness.
Yeah.
Confirmation from yourself and others that what you do has value.
Has value, not financial value, value to the world, to them as a person, to whatever you're contributing to.
That maybe it is financial. Like your success is what you make it.
Like that's another thing. You meet a lot of people that are financially successful that their whole goal was to be financially successful. They're extremely happy about it because they did exactly what they set out to do.
That was their goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We shouldn't belittle those people.
They didn't make the world better. Right. They don't care.
They don't care.
And then E, I really love is elasticity. And that's how flexible you are in life, how you recover from life's inevitable negative events.
Yeah.
Bad things will happen.
Right.
And I think, you see that I think back on like with your kids, like when they get into their first like big relationship, like, oh gosh, like, that the big heartbreak is coming. Like those things, like you're going to have bad experiences in life. Like you're going to have accidents, cars, pets, like all these things are going to break down and die and like bad things will happen in your life. But how you bounce back from them and how your flexibility is in life plays into how happy you are.
And that's harder as you get older.
Or easier, depending on, sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder. It's all what happens and what comes at you. So I think we promise is good. Well-being, environment, pleasure, relationships.
I say it's we pro-is.
Yeah. Meaning, involvement,
meaning
success,
first.
And elasticity. Meaning. So we're going to talk more about happiness. We have an upcoming episode of Beauty and the Surgeon podcast where we're talking about what you would think we would be talking about. Is plastic surgery the key to happiness?
Yeah, I mean, that is really the question.
Mm-hmm. We talked a lot about other things other than surgery this episode, but we are going to talk about happiness directly related to surgery.
Right. But I think we went through the list of things that should make you happy, and none of those said like, making your breasts look better or your abdomen look better.
Right.
So
or looking as pretty as
we probably already know the answer to this, but there are some benefits of plastic surgery, so we could probably talk about it.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting article. Episode. It's going to be a really interesting episode.
That's good.
Yes. So did you have anything else to add about happiness?
No, I thought this was such a good episode and discussion, and I think it's so apropos. I'm so glad you picked this topic. I think where all of us are right now, anyone listening to this podcast has had these thoughts because of the isolation, loss of people that you love, and, dealing with inherent mental illness, which is really rampant through this country and worse now than it has been in a long time. I think that people do need to focus on happiness. And there's what Amy talked about. We promise.
We promise.
We promise.
Or me pro eyes.
We pro eyes. I think that really sums it up. But bringing it back to what we do, the best patients, the ones that we feel look the best, are usually the happiest ones that give off like positive energy, and it just seems like, they're great. And it doesn't mean they're not struggling. It doesn't mean they don't have difficulty in their life.
By no means perfect.
Yeah, no, they're not perfect. They definitely don't look the best. And so to me, that's what keeps me going too. And those people inspire me for my life and what I'm doing. I feel extremely blessed. I know Amy does too, that we get to do something that we're passionate about and we love. So maybe we don't fulfill all of we've promised, but at least we got the M. Okay. And we can hold on to that when the other parts are kind of falling apart a little bit. So I think, maybe try to start and figure out things that right now that you can improve, or it can make you feel quote unquote happier. So that's good.
Yeah.
Nils, are you happy? Yeah.
I'm happy for a vaccine soon.
Yeah, exactly.
I can see him smizing behind his mask. So
in a couple weeks. Okay.
Yes. So thank you everyone so much for listening. If you are interested in watching the slides that went along with this podcast, you can find those on our YouTube channel. We are at Jason Martin on MD on YouTube and at Beauty and the Surgeon podcast on Instagram. I'm going to leave our phone number for voicemails. We'd love it if you leave us some voicemails every week.
I'm basically going to call and disguise my voice, a very New York accent.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely not know it's you.
Yeah.
For sure I won't.
Amy, we're going to go walk a dog. I got stuff with my neck.
You know that there's a caller ID on this, right?
What? Dr. Martin, this is your phone number. It wasn't me. Yeah. It wasn't me.
No, somebody took my phone. So that phone number is 303-630-9038, and it is in the show notes as well. So one other thing that we would love if you would give us a like, a comment, a rating, a review. It really does help us. I know I say that every time, but it really does. I also love your questions. Please keep them coming.
Yeah, we love your questions. They're great.
2021 is going to be a great year.
It's going to be an awesome year. Happiness, happiness, happiness.
We promise.
We promise. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Don't forget to check out our sponsor, Let's Get Checked. Let's Get Checked offers fast, affordable, and completely confidential health testing for everything from STDs, male and female hormones, and even COVID-19, right from the comfort of your own home. And remember, new customers and listeners of our podcast get 20% off by using our URL, trylgc.com/beauty, and be sure to use the code BEAUTY20 at checkout. That's trylgc.com/beauty and use the code BEAUTY20, beauty, BEATUY 20 at checkout. Get checked. It's the right thing to do.